You're listening to Chameleon Church. Biblical Antidotes for the Modern Man. With your host, Allan Aguirre. You're listening to Chameleon Church. Biblical Antidotes for the Modern Man. With your host, Allan Aguirre.
Well, that was weird. My trusty Tuesday morning cup. Good morning. It's Tuesday morning. This is the Chameleon Church Show. My name is Allan Aguirre. It is August 25th. We're done with August. That means fall's coming, which means winter's coming. Woke up to a little bit of a thunderstorm with some rain and some really cool wind breezing in through the windows. So just because I psychologically realize where we were calendar-wise, season-wise, doesn't mean it has to change, does it? Does that mean it has to do that? Darryl! Good morning. How you doing?
I'm good. I have my Tuesday morning mug too.
Yeah, I see that. Yep. Chameleon mug. Hey, so I was driving. Well, I was actually sleeping last Tuesday when the show was going on. I left. Well, I was in the car sleeping in the middle of the desert. So we left Los Angeles Monday. I'm gonna say around 11:30 p.m. So we got to Vegas. I was driving around 3:45. I was tired. And so my daughter started driving. So I was asleep. And the next thing she woke me up when we were in St. George, which is only like an hour or so away from Vegas. And I was delirious. She woke me up because she's like, we're at Jack in the Box. Do you want a couple tacos? Because Jack in the Box tacos are, everything. And I'm like, I'm thinking, it's like, what time is it? Like 5 in the morning or something? And so I said, yeah. So I nailed down a couple tacos at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, and then passed out again. Woke up about an hour and a half, 2 hours outside of town, outside of Utah. Well, we were in Utah, but outside of where we live. So I was asleep while you were manning the controls. I greatly appreciate you doing that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I prattled on for an hour and a quarter, and
yeah. Did you have a good time? Was it a good? I see that you got some people watched.
Yes, there was more than one or two people. It was quite remarkable. Yeah, it was good. I
caught a little glimpse of it. I watched it afterward. I watched the what do you call it? The stream, the YouTube archived, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
the rerun. Yeah, you got a little conspiratorial on us, didn't you?
You have an issue with that, don't you?
I've had an issue with that for decades. No, what did you talk about?
What did we talk about? Talked about making sure that we're encouraging people at this time, because there is a big conspiracy out there, and they're trying to kill us.
At least. Yeah, in all sorts of ways, man.
Oh, it's like total madness.
Crazy, man.
Unbelievable.
So I leave LA, and as soon as I left LA, they're talking about arresting Christians for a year if they don't comply, if they gather. It's like, wait a second, how stupid how stupid are you? 2, how stupid do you think the majority of us are? Very. And then 3, what about those of us that aren't stupid? You can protest, you can assemble violently, you can do all these things that you shouldn't be doing, and you get a pass. But if you get together if you get together at your church for church, you're breaking the law.
Yeah.
Does that not smack a little strange to people?
No, they're glad. They're glad that this is happening because they can't wait to have us rounded up. These people hate us. And what they don't realize is that they're just useful idiots.
So
this is the part that I don't understand. How do they think that they're going to benefit from what's coming?
Well, are you talking, who are you asking that question to? Christians, people of faith, or people that aren't, people that aren't seeing what's really going on, or the people doing it?
The people doing it, the BLM protesters, the Antifa protesters, the people like AOC and how do they figure that when the Luciferians, the Satanists take over, that they're actually going to get a
path or something?
An exalted position. How are they not going to be ending up in the gulag?
Yeah. Well, no, these people are the pawns. These are the little worker bee pawns.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
but I'm trying to figure out their thought process. I'm trying to figure out that it's like this guy that got killed in, what was it, Wisconsin? The black guy that the cops shot because he was running toward his car to grab a gun.
Get a gun.
And now they're protesting and rioting. And did you see the picture of the church that put up Black Lives Matter got burnt down?
These people, man. Well, see, that's the thing. I mean, I posted yesterday, side by side the two different narratives regarding what happened in Wisconsin. Which one are you going to believe? That a guy was walking away from the police and was shot in the back in front of his three kids that were sitting in the car? Or are you going to believe the narrative, right? Because that's bad. You can't just shoot a guy in the back 7 times in front of his kids. Or he was wielding a knife, threatening them with a knife, and then threatened to go back to his car to get a gun, and that's what he was doing. Yeah. And he went to the car to get a gun, and they ended up shooting him. Here's the key, people. If the cop tells you to stop, stop. If a cop says to raise your hands, raise your hands. If the cop says drop the knife, drop the knife. What are you doing with a knife? What are you doing wielding a knife in a cop's face to begin with? That's called lawlessness. We talked about that last night. Smiley One, I don't know who the heck that is. Sounds like a lowrider chick name.
It's Desiree.
It's Desiree. She changed her name. Desiree says, I got conspiratorial last night. I actually didn't. I got biblical. We're going to get biblical. We're going to get biblical. No? You want to do the Marsha Brady with me? No? Don't threaten cops with knives, man. And if they say stop, stop. You don't run to your car and you don't tell them you're going to go get a gun and shoot them. And then go to your car. But see, that takes reasoning. That takes some common sense. That takes adding dots. But no, let's just go straight to the chase. They shot a man in the back. Okay, yeah. The question is why? Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter why. The cops shouldn't be shooting guys. Mm-hmm. Well, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He was black. You should have knelt. You should have taken and you should have bowed the knee. You should have taken a knee. What the hell? Are you freaking nuts?
Yeah, it's any semblance of reason is gone. Any semblance of decency is gone. Any semblance of order is completely gone. The tech giants are banning conservatives. They're even banning Trump now. So I don't get what he's allowing. I don't understand why. Maybe that's way above my pay grade.
But here's the beautiful thing. All of this has to happen. Mm-hmm. See, I think the revelation of John isn't something that happens to us. It's something that we usher in. It's something that we cause through our prayers and supplications and all that, right? So all these crazy things have to happen for us to pray properly and for us to actually do what we're supposed to do. What I think is amazing. Here's what I think is amazing. I'm not amazed by the violence. Man doesn't surprise me. Sinful man doesn't surprise me. This world doesn't surprise me, right? Hell, even the church and all their stupidity doesn't surprise me. But here's what's fascinating to me is how easy it was for all these people to get in step. How easy and how quickly all of this has transpired. And here's the one thing I know I said it doesn't amaze me, but it does amaze me the amount of Christians that are complicit.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing to me, because you and I, if you're at least a halfway reasonable human being or a reasonable fellow, you and I already see these issues in people of faith, which is why we do what we do. We haven't been doing this every Tuesday morning for 2.5 years because we don't have something better to do.
Mm-hmm.
We do this on Tuesday morning in hopes of extending people's understanding to these issues, and just how subtle, just how conniving and crafty and what's that? Harmless as a dove, but as sneaky. What's that? As a snake? Wise, right? And that's that crafty wisdom. I love that. What's up, buddy? I love his.
It's 8 o'clock.
I love him popping in like that. That's awesome. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, doesn't say that he roams the earth looking for who to devour and destroy? I mean, you're talking about the ancient. This is an ancient foe. We're talking about Satan, Lucifer, whatever. You know what I'm saying? This guy walked among the living stones.
Yeah.
And somehow we think we're going to be able to just nilly-willy ward him off.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, didn't he exasperate Jesus to the point that angels came and ministered to him?
Mm-hmm.
That's Jesus we're talking about. And you, Mr. Christian, are who? So, if we have to understand our enemy in order to at least resist and combat it, and counter it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the lack of that is why it's so easy for so many of these people to just get in step, wear your mask. So think about this. Biden's America, one of his main campaigns promises that if you make me president, we will enact a national mandatory mask wearing. Sign me up. I mean, you're going to arrest Christians if we go to church and if we're not wearing masks. Okay, so the general population isn't wearing a mask. You're going to get in trouble. But Christians, again, you can protest. You can be lawless. You can do these horrible things they're doing in the streets of our cities. Destruction, vandalism, intimidation, thuggery, just plain old simple thuggery.
Yeah.
You can do that. We'll allow you to do that. In fact, we'll actually help you do that, and we'll actually back your play. And we're going to rally celebrities and athletes to put up money for your bail. But don't you go to church and worship any God.
Yeah.
Especially the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
Yeah.
What the hell, man? Yeah. If you can't, I mean, my wife and I are seeing it, it doesn't matter. how what's the word? It doesn't matter how eloquent you can be. Your level of eloquence in describing the scenario doesn't matter. These people can't hear what's going on.
Well, and that's very
can't
much like
hear it.
being in Jewish ministry. I mean, you can describe all you want, Messianic prophecy. You can talk about Israel's rebellion with God, the fact that Torah says you need blood atonement, all these things. It doesn't matter how, and that's why one of the first verses that I ever memorized in Scripture was John 6:44. And he says, no one comes unto me unless the Father who sent me draws him.
Yeah.
If God doesn't do the drawing, if the Holy Spirit isn't at work in your heart beforehand, now he draws everybody, but somehow in this whole free will thing, we have the ability to resist. And that's one of the things that's always mystified me. How is it that some of us have the capacity to understand and be drawn to God, and then others, it's completely foreign? I mean, when I talk to my family, there is a spirit of unbelief that lies over my family it's powerful, man. I mean, they don't have ears to hear. It doesn't matter what you say. And so what's happening is that is now spreading to all of society, where rhyme and reason are out the window. It doesn't, like you said, doesn't matter what you say. They've already met. I had a guy in Peterborough, and he was of a Seventh-day Adventist background. And he used to say this about everybody else, but what I realized is that he was really saying about himself. But he used to say that people would, say, "Don't. I've already made up my mind. Don't confuse me with the facts."
Yeah, yeah. So here's what's interesting about my family. Half of them believe they're of faith.
Mm-hmm.
What's worse? What's worse? What you're describing, they have no capability of faith, or those that actually believe they're of faith when it's just so clearly that they're not. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, many will come to me in that day.
Yeah, I don't know which one's worse. So I had a thought. It was a good thought too. He said, only the Father connecting the dot, being able to hear. So, yeah, it's amazing. Like, for example, what we're talking about, the narrative, the black man shot in the back, unarmed, that narrative, right? The prominent narrative, the narrative they're selling. That's the narrative they're selling. They're hustling that narrative. Just like they've been doing everything else. I mean, they've been doing this narrative thing now. I mean, the narrative is the narrative selling has been thick these last 4 months, hasn't it? 6 months, has it? Has it been 6 months already, dude?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay, so the narrative they're selling, that they're pushing, the majority of people that's what they want to believe. They want to believe for some reason. Is that part of the whole anti-Trump thing? So psychologically, subconsciously, they hate Trump. They hate the conservative Republican landscape right now, or the last 4 years. And so it makes sense then for me to believe that the police are targeting black men, black people. Versus this guy had a knife, and he was, here's what people don't understand about a knife. A guy with a knife can charge you from 21 feet, right?
Mm-hmm.
7 yards. A man with a knife can rush you, come running at you with a knife, and actually make contact with you with that knife by the time you draw on him.
Yeah.
Aim and shoot. See, people that most people, I would say probably 80% of the general population don't have that information. They don't know that. They don't know that a knife wielding individual can bum rush you without you knowing, right? I mean, can surprise you by bum rushing you with a knife and actually make contact before you can draw, aim, and shoot. See, so the fact that, right, so the liberal mentality, right? The liberals don't know very much about guns. And remember that one journalist that shot an AR-15 on the news, and then he said he had post-traumatic stress, PTSD. Is that what it's called? PTSD after the fact? Yeah, I think that's hilarious. And if my laughing offended you, suck it up, snowflake. Don't shoot a gun. So, right? They don't understand or know that a man with a knife can run. You could be walking in the park. Think of all the activities you're doing out there in public, and some crazy man with a knife can bum rush you and attack you, even full front on. Even if you saw it coming, he can still clear that 20 feet, those 7 yards, and make contact before you can draw, aim, and shoot. People don't understand that. So if you already have a knife and you're already out of control and you're already talking smack and you're already wielding a knife, and now you're gonna go to your car and get a gun, what else are you gonna do?
And then LeBron James comes out and says that black people feel terrified.
Okay, you know what, America? Go watch the Hodge twins. Those two black conservative men will tell you some reality. They'll tell you some truth.
Yeah. Oh my gosh,
I love those guys.
They're great.
But you only watch like the last 6 or 8 months. Don't go further back than that, because those guys are really rude and crass and vulgar. But man, okay. So Kevin has a question. Tell us what you think about the preterist. Oh no, I don't agree with it.
Well, it's saying that there basically is no millennium. It's an amillennial point of view, because all of the scriptures pointing toward the second coming, the millennial kingdom, have already happened and have been fulfilled. So the Antichrist is actually, what was it, Nero or
right. Yeah, or we're already in the millennium.
Yeah,
I've heard that too. Kevin, I guess Kevin, you weren't on. You weren't there last night at the devotional. We talked about this. We talked about
Satan's. I love the one where they say that Satan's already bound.
Satan's already bound.
Yeah, because that's what they believe, right? The all-millennials' point of view is that Satan's bound, and what they mean by bound is that he still has to answer to God, so he's not allowed to just run willy-nilly. So when it says that in the 1,000-year reign of Messiah on earth, and that Satan is bound in the bottomless pit,
right? But yes, we all believe that that's what's going to happen. But it's
saying it's happening right now.
I know. A lot of people. Yes, I know that people believe we're actually in the millennium right now, and I'm like, have you looked outside? Have you watched the news for the last 6 months?
I don't see Isaiah 2 or Micah. Swords will be beaten into plowshares, and nations will not learn war again. And no, the preterist point of view is it's denying reality. Unless you are premillennial, you are not being honest with the scriptures.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously don't agree with that point of view, and we're sorry, Kevin, if you do.
It's intellectually dishonest. We can discuss the timing of the rapture, and there are valid points for all positions: pre-trib, mid-trib, pre-wrath. You can make an argument, and you know what? It's not going. But to say that we're all millennial, or we're preterist, or we're post-millennial, or something like that, I mean, this is ridiculous. How many dozens of scriptures does it talk about Messiah's rule and reign? And John, in the book of Revelation, says he will reign for 1,000 years. How else do you describe that? Oh, we're going to spiritualize it. It's going to be metaphorical. It's going to be allegorical. We're going to suck on the peace pipe. And like, what are you doing?
I remember I had
there was a Presbyterian minister who I knew many years ago, and we used to have some interesting conversations. And he had his doctorate in Puritan theology, and so apparently the Puritans were of the amillennial bent, or at least some of them were anyway. And I said, so explain this to me, because I don't understand. I was a young believer at the time. I had only been saved about 3 years, and here I am arguing with this guy with a doctorate in theology, which just shows you the quality of education people are getting. But I said to him, so explain this to me. I, as a premillennialist, why is it that I could not become, ordained in your denomination? And he says, here's the whole reasoning behind the amillennial's point of view. We don't believe that God has a separate plan for Israel because of Galatians 3:28, which says that in Messiah there's neither Jew nor Greek. I said,
wait. It's a standalone verse out of context? No.
You're being sarcastic.
I said, believe that.
The whole basis for your reasoning for adhering to this point of view, that one verse, oh dear God.
All these people are functioning on one verse out of context.
I was dumbfounded. I couldn't believe it. So you're going to do, how should we describe it? Spiritual pretzeling with the, is that a term? I don't know. Can we make that a term?
You just made it up. And
I
today,
did.
August 25th, the birth of spiritual pretzeling.
Because that's what they're doing with Scripture.
As long as we're not in China. Yeah. Did you hear Trump all week long? The China virus. I love how he did something live on Saturday, and he starts off by, this is what he says. The first thing he says to the press corps was, I hope you all had a good convention last week. Flat out just called them all Democrats. I hope you all had a good convention last week, because we're going to have a good one this week.
Yes.
And then he goes straight into the China virus. And I'm like, there's a reason why I love this guy. If I can trigger you, I will. Help me. How can I trigger you? Let me count the ways.
It's not hard.
Oh my gosh.
They look for ways to do that. So this whole thing about, it comes from an anti-Semitic point of view too.
Yeah.
I say to people, listen, you know how we can destroy the amillennialist point of view? If God doesn't keep his promise to Israel, that they actually get the land, the borders that he promised to Abraham, which they've never had. They came close under Solomon, but they've never had truly all the land that God promised. I said, if God doesn't keep his promise to Israel to give them the land, why should he keep his promise to you?
See, and that's why, okay, so back to Christianity's inability to understand and reason and side on the wrong side of things. You have to hate Trump. That has to be part of the equation. I hate Trump so much that I believe the cops are bad and everyone's a racist and everyone's going after the people of color, and to believe the narrative that the cops shot a man who was simply walking away. Right? This whole narrative, it's a whole thing, right? So you have this whole thing for the church. So here's what I want to say, and then help me get back on track. The way the majority of us, I don't believe we're able to see what they're beginning to see the last 6 months. See, okay. I think the majority of people, let alone the majority of the church, weren't able to understand or see or process that things just aren't the way they seem, that there are puppet masters behind the scenes, playing not only you, but playing society as a whole, playing the planet as a whole. I have liberals more than once ask me, "Oh yeah, that's ridiculous, Allan, to suggest that the whole world is in on it. That's ridiculous. How is that even possible?" And I'm like, "Have you never heard of do you know what the W and WHO stands for? Have you ever heard of the United Nations? Did you not know these people all are in cahoots together and they all talk?" It's like they can't fathom these things. They just can't add these dots up. They're incapable of seeing the dots. They just see gaps. So the majority of people never saw things the way they're beginning potentially to see things these last 6 months.
Right.
All right. So, for example, the example we're using is the cop shot a guy in the back simply for walking away versus the guy had a knife. He's already got 2 priors. When they ran his ticket, he was a felon. He's violence, sexual assault.
He was a sweetheart, this guy.
Right. He's a bad hombre, as somebody else would call him. He's a bad hombre. He's got a knife, and he just threatened that he's going to go get his gun. And he goes to his car to get his gun. Well, if you're what I'm trying to say is and I'm sure Darryl has, because we're pretty much on board with a lot of the same things, have always been able to see like this. And see, what people of faith are starting to see now is how we have always seen people of faith. In the same way, it confuses you how somebody could take this liberal position about this poor man and this scenario in Wisconsin versus the truth is how we have seen the church for as long as 30, 40 years. Mm-hmm. I have seen the church function like that the majority of the time, which is why I do what I do, how I do it. You are believing a false narrative about God, about the Bible, about theology, about doctrine, because you're not connecting the dots properly. And we've been trying to open up the reality of the word to you, the reality of doctrine and theology to you, whether it's for however amount of time. So I'm hoping people of faith are starting to see it. I know that my Monday night group, the people that we're working with are getting it. That's very exciting. The amount of correspondence I get from people that have the Facebook, for example. I've been doing this for a year. I just got it's brand new. I've heard about it 6 months ago, this or whatever, that's a lot of new people this book is opening up these truths to, and that's exciting. Mm-hmm. What keeps people from being able to see truth? What keeps people bound in lawlessness? What causes people to be on the wrong side of these things? Why do we want to believe that there's a plague out there wiping out the majority of the population, so we have to change society when that's not the case? Last night we were talking about the most offensive thing. One of the most offensive things out there is the invitation to come to Jesus, and how that just freaks people out. Mm-hmm. And how Jesus doing this, knocking at your door and wanting to heal you, wanting to take your hurts and pains, wanting to heal your mind. Because in order to believe this false narrative that they're peddling, mm-hmm. regardless, whether it's what happened in Wisconsin, whether it's the Floyd deal, whether it's the Rona deal, whether it's you better wear a mask, or or here, let's go back 20 minutes and change all our examples to simply this one. You can gather violently in the streets of our country and destroy things and be lawless. and threaten the police and white people, because that's what they're doing. You can do that, but you can't go to church. Let's use those as our polar opposite examples versus whether this man was reaching for a gun or was shot in the back for nothing, because that's okay. It's you know what I'm saying? It's harder for me. I'm thinking but this probably doesn't work. I'm actually a reasonable human being. For me, it should be easier. You gather 10 people, 10 random people that you don't know, sit them down and ask them, does this make sense? Hundreds of people are violently gathering in the streets, and it's okay. And you can't catch the Rona if you do that. But if the same amount of people go to a church once a week to worship their God, not only are they breaking the law, not only are they the terrorists for not obeying, but all of them are going to get sick for doing so.
Because God's going to judge them.
Right. So I'm thinking a reasonable human being should be able to look at those two examples and think, no, that doesn't make any sense. Well, that's how I've looked at the church for the majority of 40 years. How are you not seeing this and cooperating with it? Whether it's, I should probably stop sleeping with my brother's wife, or, I should probably stop doing the porn thing, or maybe I should, you know what I'm saying? Whatever it is whatever your vice is. Bob Hall, Smiley One, Christine Thompson, Kevin, Allan, Darryl, whatever your thing is, why haven't you put that down to serve the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob better? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there's a great deception. There's a great deception right now on the planet. See, again, the father, capital F, of lies. The father of lies. He was a liar from the very beginning, it says. Well, he's the prince of this world. We're on his turf. This is his territory.
Yep.
And he roams the earth, in it, above it, and under it, looking for who to devour, steal, kill, and destroy. And so what's happening is there's this pressure. It's a pressure cooker thing, right? Second heaven, man. And the demonic. I shared this with my people last night. I actually got reprimanded or rebuked one time for saying my people, for calling them my. Anyway.
You're being arrogant about that.
Whatever. If I want, anyway. We, as easy, right? We're breathing and we're blinking without thinking about it. Well, in the same way, you have to understand without thinking about it that the physical manifests the spiritual 1,000% of the time, always, forever. So what we're seeing. So when you look at your window, if you're like me or Darryl, and the majority of our audience, because we have the majority of our audience actually understands what we're talking about.
Is it our audience?
The majority of your audience. The majority of God's audience. Is that better? I don't have time for all that crap. The majority of my Chameleon Church audience, they understand these things. What was I saying? What was the point? Oh, that the physical manifests the spiritual. So if you look outside your window and you see people walking around like zombies with their little masks on, and you see the Antifa BLM terrorists doing what they're doing in major cities. I mean, it's even in Wisconsin, dude. As you see the footage, yeah, did you see the footage of them walking around the streets armed with AR-15s and challenging the police? Armored vehicles.
So why did the police even bother? This is what you want? Okay. Have at it. I think as a cop, if I was a cop in one of these cities, I would just, okay, if the government is going to be on your side, then do whatever you want, but don't come crying to us when it turns on you. See, I wonder what the last thought that went through Robespierre's head was before it got separated from his neck. You know, he was going to purify France. He was going to purge France of all the corruption, and he was going to make it in his image. And he went after people with a vengeance. Thousands of people died. I mean, the reign of terror that got unleashed on France during the Revolution, people don't understand how absolutely brutal that was. And it turned on the because once you release that kind of power, and there is a term that's applied to essentially the spiritual force that drives all this.
Right. And we mentioned that something was unleashed with this Rona thing spiritually.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And once you unleash that, it's, the proverbial Pandora's box. You can't put it back in again.
Getting that genie back in the bottle can be a biatch.
Any human being that thinks they can control the spiritual realm, just because you stand on the 5 points of a pentagram and you utter a few things, when the spiritual realm decides that they're done with you, and that's what this is all about. Yes, the demons will submit to the authority of the witches and the warlocks and the occultists, only insofar as it suits their purpose, which is to destroy mankind.
Right.
Once they're done with you, the useful idiot, is now going to be kicked to the curb, and you are going to find out that you weren't in control at all.
Right.
And that's what, so why do the cops even bother? Fine, let these guys riot, let these guys kill and rape and pillage. Give the Democrats what they want.
Man, no. Okay, so the prospect of a Biden America, I mean, how long can that guy last before she then becomes, and she's just a puppet. I mean, she's like, I'm happy to be here. I know how and why I'm here. I'm of color, and I'll let you know what color I am next week. Yeah. And I'm a woman. Yeah. It's insanity. But so all you have to do is look out your window. Look what they've done to Seattle. Oh, look what they're still at it. What the heck? They're still at it. Didn't somebody tell them it's like, the party's over. What are you still doing in my living room? Look what they're doing in Seattle. Look what they're doing in Portland. Look at what the government of the state of California is doing to the church. Look at Chicago. Look at New York.
Yeah.
People are fleeing New York and California. Massive. People of money and wealth are leaving these states. And then realize that what is happening out there, and then let alone the whole Soros and Gates insanity, and the Obamas, they're all in on it. I mean, don't tell me they're not. They were in the news last week. They were telling people what to do last week.
Mm-hmm.
And realize that the physical manifests the spiritual. And so last night, and part of what we do outside of Tuesday morning with the books and the devotionals, and now my new Incorruptible series, teaching series that I'm launching this week. Well, at least the pilot at the Take on the World virtual conference that starts Wednesday. Take on the World conference. Incorruptible, the inheritance of sonship. Look outside your window, realize that what's happening politically, socially, all that stuff, financially, economically, China, all that stuff, it's the physical manifesting the spiritual. And what you need to know about that so that you can stand firm and not be tossed, swayed, walk in fear, doubt, unbelief. No, but actually prosper and Isaac in the land of famine reaped 100-fold.
Mm.
We have a spiritual inheritance on this planet. Here, look at this, man. I know that the mainstream Christianity has told you and taught you erroneously that God's coming down to swoop you away from all this and you're going to go to heaven. No, it says that we're going to inherit the earth. So this planet that you're not being a good steward of as far as possessing, see, Christians are squatters. They occupy, they don't possess. That's the problem. That's probably one of the reasons why he's tarried. We're not doing what he told us. Well, Israel was supposed to Israel was supposed to possess the land of Canaan after driving out the giants, the Nephilim, the demonic strain of humanity. Well, we're supposed to possess our prophetic inheritance as well and push out the giants, our Nephilim, whether it's in business or education or entertainment. But we don't know that. See, we don't know that. We haven't been taught that. And a lot of us don't believe that. They don't know that that's what's actually supposed to be happening. See, Jesus returns. His second coming is to deliver Israel from her enemies and then set up his earthly reign for 1,000 years. And you and I are supposed to be co-reigning with him. We're inheriting the earth, man. And the sooner you understand that, see, in the now, the physical manifests the spiritual, and in the now, we're supposed to be preparing a people for the Lord. In the now, we have to be learning the mechanics of these things. If you watch my presentation for this weekend on Take on the World, I talk about what does Daniel tell us in Daniel 7? If we understand these things, you would be approaching life on this planet differently. You wouldn't be championing communism, for starters. I can't believe we're actually looking at that. How is that possible? How is it possible that in 2020, we're looking at a possible communist insurrection?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, see, I was a punk rocker as far back as the 70s. We have been warning about this physically and spiritually for a long time. And no one's listened. No one cares. It's like no one cares. And here we are at the I'm looking at my dogs around here somewhere. My husky puppy. And here we are. And too many people, see, I love the way, think about it. People, come on, wake up. God puts a man that is repulsive to the majority of the world, Trump, in position to champion conservative biblical values. But they hate this guy so much because he's not a politician. He's not in debt. He's not in anybody's pocket. He's frustrating their plans and their timeline. Yeah. Exposing deep state, all this stuff the majority of people have never ever wanted to even potentially conceive of, which we've been all talking about for decades, and you thought we were nuts, right? So the dross. What's the dross in the last few years? Pedophilia. The amount of the occult and pedophilia that celebrities and politicians are involved with, all that's coming up. It's rising to the surface. We told you if you normalize LGBTQSYXWYZ, the next thing would be pedophilia. Guess what's been happening? Right? That's why Trump's there. So to be anti-Trump is to be anti the exposure or the correction of these things.
Mm-hmm.
And so where's the counterattack?
Mike Lake says that 2020 is about waking up the remnant. And he says until the remnant wakes up, you're not going to see an end to any of this. It goes back to 2 Chronicles 14:7. If my people who are called by my name humble themselves, repent, turn away, then God will rise up. Until his people are ready and willing to do what's necessary to get on their knees and ask for forgiveness. Because again, we got to remember, Roe versus Wade happened because the church refused to storm the gates of the White House and the Supreme Court when that ruling came down.
Because we don't believe we're supposed to be playing in that arena, and you're wrong.
If Abe Lincoln, after a Supreme Court ruling, threw all of the Supreme Court justices in jail because they didn't rule right, where are we today?
A badass right there.
Yeah, exactly. See, it's the enemy that's doing that now. They're arresting people like Julian Assange. Julian Assange should be made a hero. Edward Snowden should be welcomed back to the United States with a red carpet and a position for life. And these guys are treated as criminals. Julian Assange is rotting away in jail. And Trump had the opportunity to pardon him. And who does he pardon? Susan B. Anthony. She's dead. She doesn't care whether she's got a pardon or not. What about the people who are alive who are fighting for the Republic? What about the people who are alive who are fighting for freedom today? Why isn't Jack Dorsey in jail and on trial for high treason, waiting the gallows? Why isn't Zuckerberg on trial for treason? Why isn't Hillary Clinton on trial for treason? 33,000 emails, that wasn't enough? No, something's seriously broken in society today. And as much as Trump is there to be a battering ram against the deep state, there's a whole lot that's going on here that's being allowed to, and it needs to come to an end. And it's because Christians aren't rising up. God is waiting for the remnant to rise up and to make our voices heard. So at 11 o'clock, my time, I have a pastor's meeting.
11 o'clock? What are you talking about?
9 o'clock.
11 o'clock and I've had one cup of Joe?
Yeah. So, yeah, I've got a pastor's meeting for the pastors in Niagara Falls.
Niagara Falls.
And believe me, I'm going to be chomping on my tongue a whole lot when I talk to these guys.
There's a passage that states, not until the Spirit and the bride in unison declare, "Come, Lord Jesus," does it happen.
Well, 2 Corinthians 10:6. And we are ready to judge all disobedience when your obedience is complete. And the remnant's obedience isn't even close to being complete. Not even close. So we're going to continue this. And more people are going to get shot, and more people are going to die. 2020 calling of the remnant. Does the remnant consist only of Jews or adopted Gentiles part of the remnant? In Messiah, there's neither Jew nor Gentile. The remnant are all those who believe in God and who follow him.
So I said yes, because it does include adoption. Oh man. And see, none of this is conspiratorial. This is all fact. And it's not my version of the truth. It's not my version of the facts.
It's madness. And God's waiting. And he continues to allow these things And a lot of people have to die before people turn to righteousness. I mean, you go through that whole thing in Numbers, which we've talked about ad nauseum, about Israel's rebellion in the desert. First of all, they refused to believe God to go into the land. And then they, when God told them not to go, then they went. And then they blamed Moses, and Korah raised up a rebellion. And then they died. And then then the children of Israel accused Moses of killing the righteous people with Korah. And then another almost 15,000 had to die. And then there was
and how do they? What did they die by?
Plague.
Yeah.
And then there was the Baal Peor, when they got hooked up with the Midianites.
And what were they dying? What were they dying of?
Plague. 24,000 had to die then. So in that whole stretch there, you have over 40,000 people hitting the dirt. And the tribe of Simeon never recovered from that. If you look at the two censi at the beginning of Numbers and the end, Simeon gets whittled down to half because it was mostly the Simeonites, because Zimri, who was the leader of the Simeonites, ran into the tent with Cosby, and that's when Phineas got up and poked them through. And so the same thing is happening today. You know, it's a miracle that God hasn't he hasn't wiped this whole thing out.
It's a miracle. There's still people here.
It is.
See,
and I tell people, you better thank God every day that God's in charge and not me.
That's called grace and mercy.
Oh, that still exists? That existed in the Old Testament?
What does he say about himself in the Old Testament? That he's long-suffering, grace and mercy. Expand what? How many generations?
1,000. Still haven't completed that yet. Well, the number of martyrs has to be fulfilled in the tribulation, but it's not the martyrs that needs to be fulfilled right now. It's the remnant has to wake up. We've got to take our stand.
Hey, you know what? So the whole world is on board with this Rona nonsense. I mean, look at what's going on with Australia and New Zealand.
Oh, wow.
It's crazy.
And Australia is supposed to have an evangelical prime minister.
So, I mean, so here in the U.S., we've got the Antifa, BLM, and elections. Don't let that... The elections, BLM, and Antifa on a global level is like, look over here, and ignore all this that's going on over here. So there's that footage of the Palestinian youth attacking a soldier at a checkpoint with a knife, and they shot him. But they're wearing masks. The guy was wearing a mask. Thank goodness for him. He didn't die of the Rona. He did get shot by the IDF, though. Stupid. Don't bring a mask to a gunfight, people. My point is this. This whole Rona thing is global. It's not just, it's global. They're wearing masks all over the planet, all over this beautiful flat earth. Okay? They're wearing the masks everywhere. The Middle East, Australia and New Zealand I don't know what the hell's going on over there, right? All of Europe. The whole world is under this weird Rona, change society, wear a mask, social distancing, comply, something that's only killing 0.5% of its victims, right? We're going to change everything for 99.5%.
And the number of deaths that they're attributing to it as well
is a farce. So,
because I'm sure that guy in Wisconsin died of coronavirus too.
Yeah, as soon as he opened up his car door. So check this out. Check this out. Why? What's up with that? What is going on behind that? Why is the whole planet, why is the whole world buying into this that narrative? See, forget about what's happening here with BLM, Antifa, in the election.
The real issue, which everybody's trying to cover up, is Ghislaine Maxwell. That's what this is really all about. It's the pedophilia network. It's the elite and their abominable practices and what they do to children. The human sex trafficking.
Because that is global.
Well, it always has been. Now it's being exposed.
Yeah. But see,
the whole fake Jeffrey Epstein death.
Right. But see, that's one of the reasons why we think Trump's in there. Or called to be in there.
Yeah.
And placed there prophetically. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's part of that swamp, because it's not just our government, our politicians, it's global. We're talking the wealth of the world, the leaders of the world, they're all in on this thing.
Every one of them. Jacinda Ardern, she's nothing but a mind control puppet. Locking down New Zealand because there's 4 new cases? That they say that there's new cases.
Isn't that insane?
Australian Prime Minister saying that, they're going total totalitarian. Like there's not even a pretense that that's not happening. And that
after you take all their guns.
But what they're doing is they're beta testing for what they're planning on doing in the United States. And if Biden gets elected through fraud, because we've never seen that happen. I mean, how many states did the Soros voting machines give to Hillary? What was it? 5, I think. And she still lost.
What was that? What did Trump Jr. post the other day? If you can protest in person, you can vote in person.
Yeah. And Kimberly Guilfoyle gives a rousing speech. She was married to Gavin Newsom. Good heavens.
Yeah, there's like a whole string there.
I mean, this is so... It's so intricate, and there's so much that goes on. And so trying to sort through it all.
Yeah.
And this is why I think a lot of people don't want to even bother.
Right. And that's also a point a lot of people don't understand about this. So I was in Guatemala when the coup occurred in early '82. And when the guy that was given the presidency at that point, when he tried cleaning the stuff up, and it was almost impossible. Once you touch this, the domino effect, it's like this. It's like getting stuck in a revolving door. It's like, well, why hasn't Trump done this? Why hasn't Trump done that? Why hasn't Trump done this? Why hasn't Trump done that? Well, you know what? Because you don't know how these things work. It's pointless to even try to explain. Because if you don't understand how these things work, my explaining that to you isn't going to help you.
Yeah.
But it's a house of cards, you can't. And then what he has done has been demonized, majorly ignored. And they're suggesting he hasn't done anything in 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not a good thing to, have the lowest unemployment among people of color, a strong economy and getting things on track. Again, we don't want to succeed. If you don't know this by now, we're being sabotaged. We have been sabotaged for quite a while. And the last administration was probably one of the most effective saboteurs I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And You know what? Don't listen to me. Look outside your window and look and see what the general consensus and the general attitude and the general environment is for people of faith, and make your own decision. Unfortunately, the majority of people don't have discernment, so you're going to make the wrong decision, which is why we're here doing what we're doing, and why I write the books that I write, and why I say the things that I say. But if you can't look out your window and see what is happening just in the U.S. regarding people of faith, your right and privilege to gather and assemble, that is your right, your legal right by the First Amendment, to be able to gather to worship any God you want. You could call this a God, and the government can't stop me from worshiping this. Yet, they are. And they're putting restrictions, and they're doing, all you have to do is look out your window and look at the climate and the attitude towards people of faith right now, just in this country. And that alone should tell you that there's something wrong. And then look at who's doing it to you. It's not the conservatives. It's not Trump. It's not the Republicans. Stupid people.
When the remnant wakes up, then God will move. God's not moving until his people are ready. Because if they're going to sit there and continue to wallow in the sin that they're in, then why should he deliver them? This is the month of Teshuvah.
We need a Nehemiah 8 moment, Darryl. We need to declare a Nehemiah 8 moment.
Okay.
That has to come to pass.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine that. Like one man repenting and repenting and aligning as one man. Nehemiah 8 moment, man.
Or Daniel 9. This is serious business that we're in right now.
You want to voluntarily do a Nehemiah 8 moment, man.
You do.
You don't want to. Don't wait until you're forced on your knees, because that won't be good. Just because you're being, you know what I'm saying? When he forces you, every knee will bow and every tongue confess, whether they want to or not. That's going to be so bad for those people. It's not a good thing. It's a really, 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 really bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
You have to get to that point voluntarily. You want to bow? You want to bend the knee? Well, you're bending for the wrong reason. You want to bend the knee to Nehemiah based on Nehemiah 8. Now bend your knee. No, I'm not coming to Ohio. I'll be in Ohio virtually this week. They didn't have the conference in Ohio because of the Rona, and so it's a virtual conference starting on Wednesday, I believe. I don't have the link. Kevin, if you've got the link, that'd be awesome. The Facebook event link. Just need to wake up, and man, imagine a Nehemiah 8 moment. That's what needs to happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Josiah when he realized, and then he led the people. Jehoshaphat, when he led the people in prophetic prayer when they were going to be attacked. I mentioned both of those things in This Thing's Spiritual book, as well as the what we started off with, the very beginning of this episode, this show, this program this morning. And that was Lucifer. How he does what he does. And yeah, it's serious. Like you said, it's serious business. Thank you, Kevin.
Well, I have another meeting I got to run to.
Yes, you do. Father, we pray protection and blessing over our president and,
Yes.
and his family. Father, we ask for your sovereign mercy, grace, and wisdom. The U.S., if the U.S. falls, the rest of the planet falls, people. I don't know if you understand that, but that's the way it works in the physical realm. Israel in the spiritual realm. We can't allow the U.S. to become like everybody else. See, there's a reason why people risk their lives to flee their country to come into ours illegally. And it's not because it's a communist country. So, Father, we ask for your mercy and your grace and your protection in Jesus' name.
Amen.
In Jesus' name, have a good meeting. And so we'll, yeah.
You're listening to Chameleon Church. Biblical Antidotes for the Modern Man. With your host, Allan Aguirre.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.